Voice.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ajamu Baraka, and thank you for joining us once again for A Voice from the Margin. Today we have another voice from the margins, someone who's been in the margins and struggling for quite some time. We are so honored, and I'm so happy to have with us a familiar face, Cheri Honkala, who was, of course, the VP ticket with Jill Stein in 2012, and like the dedicated activist and revolutionary that she is, who puts theory to practice, she is involved in a very, very important new race there in her home city of Philadelphia. We'll let her talk about that herself in a moment. But this is really theory being applied into practice. It is what we have been talking about for quite some time. It's what I talked about all the time during the campaign. Well, we see the connection between, grassroots organizing and social movements and the electoral process to put in place new kinds of representation, people who we know are committed to us and who have our values. So again, it is so it's an honor, Cheri, to have you with us this evening here on A Voice from the Margins.
Hi, I'm happy to be here.
Well, Cheri, we'll jump right into it then, and tell us a little bit about where you're running for and the district that you are in fact attempting to represent.
Sure. I've been working in the 197 district for about 30 years now. A lot of folks maybe throughout the years have heard me refer to it as Kensington. We are the poorest district in the state of Pennsylvania, and I have a community garden. We regularly distribute food and feed folks. There's, large numbers of homeless people, ex-offenders, tons of folks that are living on like $2 a day. So life here is very hard. Funerals, foster care, you name it. Those are like regular things in the community here. We also have a large number of immigrants. We're struggling like other frontline communities across the entire country, trying to figure out how to stay alive on a daily basis.
So Cheri, how did this run come up? It was kind of sudden, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I certainly didn't have in mind that I would now be running for state rep. However, my neighbors and my community came to me and said, Cheri, our second state rep is going to jail for corruption. We need you to step in and play a leadership role and run for office. And so that's why I'm running for office. And I see it as a huge opportunity for Greens across the entire country, that Greens can actually participate in helping to win and uplift an entire frontline community.
Yes. So we know that this is, in fact, a historic run, and we're so happy that you are involved in this. Now, we understand, though, there's a bit of a challenge in the district in terms of how you're going to be able to participate in the process. What's going on with that?
Ballot access has always been an issue in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. The last election, of Jill's, I had to help organize and collect over 60,000 signatures. The Democrats collect 2,000 signatures, the Republican 2,000 signatures. And so I had to spearhead a campaign of getting 60,000 signatures because, there's a whole long history of folks being challenged and there's been a huge fights and court cases around getting people on the ballot in the state of Pennsylvania. So finally, this last election, we won, ballot status, and apparently one of the Green Party members in the party didn't turn in a one-page form. And even though I had turned in all of my paperwork and that kind of stuff, and then, the Democrats and the Republicans, who basically, established the rules, the process, everything, said that I couldn't be on the ballot because the one form was turned in a day late. So we decided to take it to court, and when we went to court, the judge ruled against me and said that I could not be on the ballot. So today, papers were put forward in the state Supreme Court because we think it's really important that whoever is elected in the 197th district, that decision isn't made in the courtroom, that it's actually made in the 197th district, particularly after the last two Democrats that were in office, are now, headed to jail. If we believe in election democracy, then certainly this is not an issue of, tons of different Greens arguing about who should be on the ballot. I was chosen unanimously on the city level and on the state level. I should be on the ballot. A Democrat should be on the ballot. A Republican should be on the ballot, and whoever else wants to be on the ballot. And the decision about who should represent this district belongs in this district amongst the voters here.
Well, since it's going to court, though, and it's going to be adjudicated there, what is the backup plan just in case the court may rule against your participation on the ballot?
Well, I think one of the benefits of living and working in frontline communities my whole life is that I know how to climb mountains. So I already anticipated, regardless of the one paper missing, that they're going to fight this thing tooth and nail. Because they know I can win this thing. So we're going to launch a massive write-in campaign. Some people will say across the country, well, those things cannot be won. I'm saying absolutely, in this district, we can get those 3,000 folks out. I have the name recognition in my district. People are tired of the conditions here. And if we get serious about raising the kind of serious funds that we need and put the commercials and target the district, different pockets of the district, and ensure that every single household, the doors are knocked on so that people even know that there's a special election, we can win this thing. And I'm quite surprised. I mean, there's many Democrats in several of the different wards that are also beginning to throw their support behind me because they're sick of the corruption and the stuff that's taking place in this neighborhood as well.
So Cheri, share with us, you have the unique experience of running on the national level, and now you're running on the state level. And there's been conversation around how translatable a national platform is to the local level and the state level. What are some of the issues that you are going to be highlighting during the campaign, and some of the issues that you are going to fight for once you win?
Well, there's been a little conversation, especially today, the day with no immigrants.
Yes.
There's been talk back and forth about maybe our mayor might cave in and may change Philadelphia for being a sanctuary city. And I've, said forever that I don't care what the mayor decides to do here. I will open my district office and my office in Harrisburg, and I will turn that into a sanctuary space for anybody that's in jeopardy of being deported. And ICE will have to go through myself and my attorneys. So, for folks that are out there that are talking about, like, what are different good, bills and policy positions and that kind of stuff, here's something that's very concrete. Put Cheri Honkala in office, and there will be no deportations from the 197th district.
Wow, that's very important. I mean, that is a very clear position. Now, we know that you are internationally recognized as a human rights defender in all areas. But one of the specialties, of course, has been your work around the issue of housing. Will that be of course, it probably would be a priority, but what kinds of specific policies would you like to see implemented in terms of state legislation that can address some of the housing issues in Pennsylvania and in your district specifically?
Yeah, well, a couple things, right? There's been a serious misappropriation of funds in the state with money going to prisons and tax loops for corporations, especially Marcellus Shale. And a lot of that money could be used in the state to put an end, quite frankly, to hunger and homelessness. And one of the first things that I would do the first day in office would institute a zero tolerance on homelessness in the 197th district. So again, I would open the doors of my district offices and my office in Harrisburg. And if the city and the state neglected to feed, house, and clothe people, they would get those services in my offices.
Wow. Okay. Fantastic.
And, after all, the Capitol Rotunda, it's a very large Capitol. It's got plenty of rooms. And
a lot of room. You can move a number of families into there.
Yeah. And I've done it many times without having an office in Harrisburg. But now this time I'll have an office in Harrisburg because, it's 2017. And it's really time that we put an end to stolen land and hoarded resources.
Exactly.
And that's going to end with me being in office in Harrisburg.
And that will be such a historic move for this Green Party. It really would be, and for the country, because that is people like yourself represent the potential we have in utilizing the electoral process, and it would be such a shot in the arm for progressive politics across the country. We're going to move to taking questions from you, the audience. So please send your questions and comments to Cheri, and I will share those with you. We had someone who wanted to make sure, Dave Thornton, wanted to make sure he was sending solidarity from the Greens from the UK, Cheri. So he's sending his solidarity to you.
Wonderful.
And John Benoit wants you to know he's going to be sending you some support. Of course, we know that resources are really important, and so he's going to be sending you support because he says quite correctly that we need to have real public servants like yourself on the inside.
Yeah, I just want to say, I love all the love I'm getting, but we really need folks to reach down in their pocket and pull out $1.97 or $197 and go to Cheri, CHERI197.com/donate because we're up against big money.
Yes. So we want to begin to move towards some questions. There's a lot for us to talk about and to think about in terms of looking at things like the relationship between your campaign, your organization, the party, things that can be analyzed and perhaps replicated across the country. Because we know we have a lot of candidate-centered sort of efforts. But what's, I think, really unique about your candidacy, Cheri, is that you're coming from a already established base, a organization and a base in a community. Talk a little bit about those kinds of advantages and whether or not, or to what degree you see that as a strategy that many other folks around the country might need to think more about.
Yeah, I mean, somebody once said this to me a long time ago, big hat, no cattle. And my recommendation would be is you can only do as much on a local, state, or national level based on how big your base is. So I would highly recommend that. This race is in the 197 is not about me, and one of the reasons I feel so confident is because this is about all of us, and that's why somebody that I respect very much came up with the slogan hashtag We Are the 197, because We Are the 197 really represents the growing equality of misery in this district. And it's not going to be, some leader, Cheri Honkala, but this is really taken team effort of, hundreds of people that are a part of the frontline community here that are done with living lives of, trying to figure out where to get the next $2 together.
Yeah. Cheri, you're up against a lot, and even more of a challenge is the fact that you also have to deal with the issue or the possible issue of running in a race where you have to have your supporters to write in. What are some of the tentative ideas you have in terms of you talked about knocking on doors and all of that?
Well, one of the most sexy things in the neighborhood is going to be temporary tattoos.
Okay.
We're going to have everybody, that's going to be the in thing in the neighborhood is to get Cheri Honkala 197 or whatever the poll number is going to be tattooed, on your arm or your leg or whatever that day. We're going to have stamps. Where people can just stamp, but people, we're going to make sure that we have literature on every single door, do whatever we can. But this race is not going to be won on just social media. Social media is wonderful, and that's where we're going to get our love and money from around the country, hopefully. But it's all going to come down to organization and boots on the ground. And how do we wake up the sleeping giant? Mm-hmm. How do we take 6,000 people? Because, they're saying I could win this thing with a landslide with 3,000, but I'm going for 6,000. How do we take those 6,000 folks and move them from their couch so that they're inspired enough and they believe that they can uplift an entire community? I think we can make that happen. And so the way that we can make that happen is uplifting the lives of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people so that we can at least have people have food in their stomach so that they can knock on the doors in this community.
Mm-hmm. Cheri, that's you're laying out some interesting things, very creative with the tattoos and all of that. What are some of for people who are listening and thinking about running and thinking about, running from a base in their communities? What are some of the community institutions or structures that one should identify and attempt to connect up with in running this kind of campaign, like churches, or schools?
First, I would make sure that you deal with your morale, because and really educate yourself. You have to follow the money behind all of the different institutions, because many of the institutions can talk really progressive rhetoric, and then they're the ones that are getting most of the money around privatizing the schools, or further producing social control in our community, or are slaves to some other kind of corporation. And so it's really important to identify other forms of organization, like, tenants that are all living together in a housing project, and, nobody has knocked on the doors and put all those tenants together. So non-traditional forms of organization. So maybe it's a bunch of guys that are going out every day to day labor, right? So I would look for non-traditional forms of organization. And I would also look to folks in the faith community that understand that they have to begin to step up and say, whose side are they on? Because things are really getting difficult. And so I think that we're beginning to see pastors and preachers and folks from the Muslim community begin to break with money from the Democratic Party, and are beginning to live out their morals and values and say, hey, listen, we're not just here to be a machine for a corporate controlled political party anymore.
Right. Cody Shammerer wants to know, would you ever consider running for president in 2020?
Right now I have one focus, but thank you for the compliment. But I have one focus right now, and that focus is to win this election. And I need everybody. So, take your day off of work, start spreading this thing around on social media, help me identify where there's money. And for all the money that comes in this direction, that's another low-income person that can get out there, feed their kid, feed themselves, and do door knocking. And that's what I need to have happen.
Exactly. And toward that, there's two places that people can go to donate, and also to volunteer. You have Cheri197.com/donate. There you can go and provide the resources that this campaign needs to win. Or you can go to Cheri197.com/volunteer and sign up to be able to go out and knock on those doors and to be involved in a real bottoms up kind of campaign. I got another question, Cheri. Someone who understands the kind of work that you do, and they heard recently that you took in 3 kids into your home who didn't have some place to stay. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. I have for 30 years. So for me, it's nothing different. I'm just a little busier right now. I just think, I said the joke all the time. My mom named me Share because I know how to share. And many years ago, I freed myself from being concerned about material things. And I think that the difference between myself and some other people is that I understand what abundance looks like. And many folks don't know that they have many things that they could be sharing. So, yeah, it's nothing new. I'm not a Mother Teresa. I spent most of my childhood in and out of foster care and in different institutions. So that's the thing that really, touches my heart. And I have 3 beautiful boys right now that are family. and I didn't want to see them divided. So they're together in my home.
Okay, fantastic. Cheri, you know, we talk about the fact that and the kinds of campaigns that we run and how we see the electoral process is a little different from other people. And one of the things that in fact is different is that we believe in accountability. We are really committed to the notion of democracy and accountability. What kinds of mechanisms will you put in place to make sure that you maintain that connection between yourself and your base, and that there is in fact real accountability after the election?
Oh, I mean, I wish it was just after the election, but that's one of the pluses and the negatives about having a base. I gave up. You know, I had to turn my life over to the movement many years ago. I stopped making individual decisions about what I can and can't do. A constant challenge in this movement, and why it's very difficult, is I'm no different than anybody else because I'm not Mother Teresa. You know, I wake up every morning, I look in the mirror and I say, oh, the hell with this. I'm just going to get myself a job. Give myself a 9-to-5 and make some big money and, like, you know, the hell with everything. But this movement would, you know, they would never let me just be about me and mines. They've always taught me to be about we and us. Yes. And so that doesn't mean that I, you know, have my moments when I, you know, feel, you know, selfish, or, you know, I just want to, you know, work on uplifting Cheri, or, you know, there's plenty of folks around, especially a comrade of mine that I've worked with for, you know, over 20 some years. Whenever my head starts to get big, he pops it in about 5 seconds. So I'm blessed to have people around me that keep me honest. And the most important thing that I have is my integrity.
Very, very important. I mean, and very important that you have people around you that you know, can make sure that you keep grounded. We all need that. Tanya Harold Brown would like to know, how can she help even though she doesn't live in Pennsylvania?
Well, one of the things that you could do, Tanya, is you can get together with, you know, 3-4 friends or whatever, and you can begin to do some phone banking in your living room, or you can have a fundraiser in your home. You can, you know, go online and sign up with the volunteer, the Cheri 197 volunteer section, and folks in our office will get back to you. There's so many jobs that can be done. Elections are no longer just local. We have to fight this thing together because we're up against great odds.
Cheri, we have about 1.5 minutes left. Cheri wants to know if you can repeat again some details about this election. We know it's a special election, the date, and we'll talk a little bit more about how people can get involved again. But the date and how this election came about. Yes,
this election came about because the last 2 Democrats pled guilty and for corruption and are going to jail. And so this landed in my lap. The election is March 21st. I need as many boots on the ground as possible, as many people knocking on doors and raising big money, because we're up against big money. And this neighborhood is one of the poorest in the state of Pennsylvania. And this can be a victory for Greens across the entire country. And if we as Greens can't begin to focus on helping to uplift a frontline community, then I don't know what we can do. So I'm looking forward to people helping out across the entire country. And again, go online to Cheri, Cheri 197.com, and either push the donate or the volunteer button. It's going to take all of us to win this thing.
Fantastic, Cheri. It is so much of an honor to have you on this program, this Voice from the Margin, someone who has been shifting that margin back to the center for many, many years. Folks, give Cheri your support. As she said, if we can't win this one, we can't win anything. It's a struggle, but it's something that is winnable. Thank you so much, Cheri. I'm going to see you in a couple of days. Myself and Jill Stein will be with Cheri on Saturday and maybe parts of Sunday. We are throwing it in all the way for Cheri. So thanks again, Cheri, and we'll see you in a couple of days, and we'll see everyone again next week at 8 o'clock to have another episode of A Voice from the Margins. Thank you.
Thank you so much.